Euzubillahimineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi şrah li sadri ve yessir li emri ve hlul ukdeten min lisani yefkahu kavli. Selamünaleyküm ve rahmetullahi ve berekatuh. Inshallah, we will continue with our discussion with the 24th word. This is 24th word, fifth branch, and fourth fruit. Inshallah. Can somebody tell us the page number? It should be somewhere around 380. 79. Okay. 379. Fourth fruit. Our usual reader still chewing something, so we need someone else. Oh, you can read it. I was trying to find an excuse for forcing others.
Fourth fruit. Also, do not look at the worldly and especially the dissipated and the unbelievers, and be deceived by their superficial glitter and illicit pleasures. Do not imitate them. For even if you do imitate them, you will not be like them. You will decline immeasurably. You cannot be an animal even, for the intellect in your head becomes an inauspicious tool which constantly beats you over the head. For example, there is a palace. In one of its large apartments is a powerful electric lamp. Small electric lights which branch out from it and are attached to it have been divided among its small apartments. Now someone touches the switch of the big light and turns it off. All the apartments are plunged into deep darkness and desolation. Another palace has small electric lights in all its apartments, which are not connected to the large light. If the owner of the latter palace presses the switch of the large electric light and turns it off, there may still be lights on in the other apartments, by which he can carry out his work and which will not allow thieves to profit from the darkness. Also, the first palace is a Muslim, and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the large electric light in his heart. If he forgets him, or I seek refuge from God, with God from Satan the accursed, he expels him from his heart. He will accept none of the other prophets. Indeed, no place will remain in his spirit for any perfection. He will not even recognize his sustainer. All the apartments and subtle faculties in his nature will be plunged into darkness, and there will be a terrible destruction and desolation in his heart. How will he profit in the face of this destruction and desolation? Where will he find familiarity? What benefit will he secure which will repair the damage? However, Europeans resemble the second palace, even if they cast out from their hearts the light of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Lights of a sort may remain, or they suppose they remain. They may continue to have a sort of belief in their creator and in Moses and Jesus, peace be upon them, which will allow them to attain good morals and characters. O my evil commanding soul, if you say, I am not a European and I want to be an animal, how many times have I told you, you cannot be an animal? For there is intelligence in your head, and it strikes your face, eyes, and head with the pains of the past and fears of the future, and beats you. It adds 1,000 pains to one pleasure, whereas animals receive pleasure without pain. So first pluck out your intelligence and throw it away, then be an animal. You will also receive the chastening slap of like cattle, nay, they are further astray.
So this is a very important text. When you first read it, may sound just yet another text, but it's really important, especially for us, most of us, let's say. So the overall picture, it's like, okay, we happen to be in this culture, we are Muslims, but there are all these alternatives out there, and they look like, having a great time. They look like, they have good things in their lives. And What was that? Oh, and their lives seems to be less constrained compared to ours. In our, let's say, religion, for instance, it is customary to give attention when people talking in a halakha circle rather than playing with the phone, just as an example, right? In other cultures, it may be more relaxed, that you can play with your phone while attending halakha, for instance. Anyway, so why not become like them? Okay? This question is extremely common in places like Turkey, for instance, right? And I can see that it is common among us as well. And when I say among us, I mean both the environment that we live in and also the home environment even, right? I can imagine my daughters will become older, inshallah, if I can see, and start asking such questions. So in Turkey, for instance, this aspect of Turkey for outsiders that they like, which is religion being softer, and it's not like, let's say, Iran or Pakistan, and you can dress as you wish. Nobody will tell you anything. You can just enjoy life as you wish, right? It is more relaxed, etc. You have all these people more, let's say, modern in Turkish terms. That's what they call themselves. And so why not? What is the problem with that? Who cares about, your religion? Especially when you are part of that religion, right? This is the question. An author says, you can read it in different ways. You can read it in one way it says, oh, I'm sorry, you happen to be Muslim. There's no way back. It's like a mafia. You get in and you cannot out. But also, of course, this would be a silly reading of it. He explains why for a Muslim, another option makes her lower than animals. In fiqh, for instance, like in rulings, it translates as when somebody go out, like what is the official word? Like they leave the religion. Or let's convert, or leave the religion, right? You kill them. So that's how it is, they translate it in rulings. So of course it's not the place to discuss this, the rulings, what is the constraints, what are the conditions, etc. You don't kill people, just they declare they are not Muslim. But this is extremely important, especially for us, as I said. So let's hear initial impressions. Microphone, please.
So in general, I think I'm a little confused with the picture it's trying to paint. So I would like pretty plain, like a clarification on what like each palace means. I think like wouldn't it be like, how come the first palace seems to be the bad one to me? Like it seems to be that when everything's connected to one thing and like that main thing goes out, then everyone falls into darkness. And I'm confused. I got really confused when that was the Muslim one, when that was depicted as the Muslim one. So yeah, I'm a little lost. I guess partly because I'm expecting the Muslim to be the good one, and I'm like, wait, what's going on? And then like I don't know if because I didn't understand that I'm also missing the connection to the first bit of the fourth fruit, which is to like not like fall for the deception of the seemingly good life that disbelievers have. It's like it ends up not being good. So I'm missing the connection between the analogy of the palaces and then that first thing.
Anyone wants to help us with this analogy? I have an example, but I can wait for others to give better explanation. So the one example comes to my mind is like to translate it into real life. In the first palace, in the Muslim example, is whatever you have good in this life, all these values, like ethical values, for instance, right? They all rely on something big, right? There's a huge light in the example, and everything you have in your life, the way you act, treat your family, for instance, the way you talk to friends, the way you eat, the way you save money, everything in your life, they rely on or source from something big, something shiny, let's say, valuable. Okay, this is the first example. In that sense, it's a good thing. Like you treat your family in a certain way because there's a justification in that, justification about that, which relates to everything else in your life as well. So all these tiny things in your lives connected to each other because they are connected to this main source. It's not arbitrary. You do not raise your voice, let's say, when you're talking to your mom, not because otherwise it would be bad for you. She may, send you out the house and you have to find a rental place, because you take your mom as a creation, as an artwork of the creator, and you respect her, and also you respect the way she treated you before, how she takes the responsibility of taking care of you. Now it is your responsibility to taking care of her when you are older, etc. So everything are connected to each other in your life. But in another example, the tiny things in your life, let's say the rulings, the way you treat your family, etc., again, they're not connected. You treat your family in a certain way because it's the most beneficial within that context, right? You eat in a certain way because some scientist says it is healthier for you. When you lose your family relationship, it does not affect your healthier eating habits. But because they are not connected to this main thing, main source, they are also very faint and very weak in themselves. So this is how I understood the palace example. I don't know if it makes sense, or does it make it even more complicated?
No, I mean, like, I guess that's what I understood, but in the way I am right now, it doesn't super seem like there's like a better one. I think, like, at least to me, like, I think that could be like I think that there's beauty in both of them, maybe. Like, I think that, again, from a secular perspective, it's I think a lot of people have like a motto, which is like that one thing that I can connect everything I do to. So as you were explaining that, I was like, okay, I do see parts of my life that I do have like that one central core, I guess, like a central source that I can connect a lot of things to. But I guess like in other places, like, yeah, like if I lose this relationship, it's not gonna change my eating habits, which is also good, I guess. So I'm missing the lesson, I guess, here.
I see. Now I see. Yeah.
So in here, he's making a comparison between, if I'm understanding it correctly, a person who got who got lesson from the Prophet ﷺ, like learned about how to look at life from this prophetic lens. And how is that happening? Like beginning from Sunday school or from your parents, you start getting this prophetic perspective of looking at life. To whatever extent you perfected it, but this is how you got it. So with such a mindset, if I say, no, I don't want that. So and in here, author is really saying that, what is it? To özenmek?
Oh, envy.
Envying, or like you see the Western world, and you see that they're doing so successful in science and whatnot, and they seem to be enjoying life, they have fun and whatnot. So I have this desire to be like them. So author is saying that the moment you want to be like them, actually you will start replacing, the first thing you will start replacing it, Prophet will come out of your heart. This is one observation that we can discuss about. Is it really the case? Like Westernization, and by Westernization, I mean the shiny life of New York City. This is sort of the picture that comes to my mind when people come from, let's say, overseas. What do they want? They want to go to, Times Square, like this shiny lifestyle. But once it comes into my heart, what goes out first is prophetic teachings, is author's number one claim, which I think we should discuss about this, whether this is really the case. Now, in this case, he says, but look, those people are living in this lifestyle, like, and they're Christians. Like people of America are generally Christians, unlike Europeans, because the atheism is way more in Europe. But in the United States, average people are Christians to a certain extent. And they do have certain moral values, like they don't steal to a certain extent. They treat the poor well to a certain extent. So he is saying that, author in here is saying that if you take away Prophet Muhammad from your heart, no beauty, no good quality will be left in your heart because you learned everything from him. But for a New Yorker, which never get exposed to Islam, or may get exposed to, but says, oh, I don't like the idea of Muhammad and whatnot, still that person can have some sort of moral values in his life, is his statement. He's saying that maybe he's going to have a little bit of a faith in Moses or Jesus. To a certain extent, he can have a faith in God. But if you remove Prophet from your heart, you're not going to believe in God either. Like you're simply going to become worse than an animal. This is how prophetic teaching is central in Islamic teaching, let's put it this way. But I think, is this the case? Maybe we can talk about that.
So just to make, I agree. This is exactly how text is speaks. But also we shouldn't forget the text is written for such an audience. Like the audience is people around him who are Muslim, right? We can make the text even more general, though. In our situation, for instance, a Christian can also read this text and say just instead of the teaching of the Prophet, he would read it as the teaching of the religion, right? And the question becomes, what if I become a secular? They seem to be having some moral values. But then the author would say, no, if you take out Christianity from your heart, then you will become less than animal. So I think the more generic reading of the text is also possible. If you take this revelation, let's say, or prophet, the idea of prophet and the revelation from your heart, there is no way, because even when you look at the secular people, Like again, author here is talking about Christians or maybe others, the Jewish people, because of the audience, I think. But for us, you can also say that for anyone who has a belief in God and belief in the revelation, you can say that if you take this out from your heart, you cannot get any good values remaining in your life. Because when you look at the secular people, as you said, like it seems like they are, some of them at least, good people. They are treating each other nice, right? That was our Sarah's friend's question. They look like they're treating each other nice. They're not, throwing trash on the street, unlike these people working for the city. So anyway, like, why not just become like them? And author says, no, it's not possible because you had the better version, understanding of the life, and now you are denying it. While denying the truth, how can you, and you have the naked truth in front of you, in your heart, and you're denying it, how it is possible that you will hold on to some part of the truth, just like other people? They are doing whatever they can do best in their context, right? Again, going back to the text, original text, author says, if you look at the Christians, they are doing whatever they can do best. They have certain teachings and they are hanging on. This is best they can do. But for you, he says, you had a better explanation of the life. You had a better understanding of the creation, and you are denying it and hope that you will still hold on to some part of the truth. Says this is not possible. And practically speaking, going back to Turkey, people who are actively act against religion are usually the ones that are the most aggressive when it comes to any conflict. When I first moved here, for instance, I was actively staying away from the Turkish people because the people, I would see, they were usually these white Turks, right? Who don't want anything about the religion. And they are the most criticizing, most interfering with your life, trying to, change something with you because they want so. They become like an enemy of religion. They become the enemy of everything that you try to hold on. But when it comes to people here, for instance, even when they don't believe, they do not interfere with your life. They say, okay, if this is what you believe, I will even open a room so that you can pray if you want. No white Turks would do that. Never. If they see you praying, they will, if they have power, they will try to prevent it. If they don't have the power, they will just make a silly joke, etc., because they become enemy of the truth. And I know it firsthand. I was among them, right? So when author says you become something less than animal, it's not an exaggeration. Look at your life, you will see the same thing. Not believing, not being raised as a believer, etc., not knowing the truth, it's something else. Again, you hold on whatever you can, but knowing the truth and then denying it, you become the enemy of the truth. Microphone, please.
Something tangential that I wanted to say or comment on, that maybe we can look at it better at some other point. But it seems to me that like these are Turkish people, right? These are people that were raised at least in a somewhat culture with Islam. I've seen this happen. I've noticed this, and now it's very clear that this happens with people that leave religion. Like specifically, you are raised up religious, and then you like something happens, you oppose it, you hate it, and you propagate it with people of the same religion. Like I've seen that with Christians, I've seen that with Muslims coming from other countries and liking this life a lot and being like enemies, like you're saying, like actively bad mouthing, actively stopping stuff. Whereas like the people that just were never really exposed to it are like, oh yeah, that's fine, you do you. So I think that like that would be an interesting topic to see, like why does that happen? Like why does it happen that like people that were in the religion and leave it become the enemies and not the actual enemies that were never there?
This is not tangential. This is the core of the text that we will discuss, inshallah. Why this happens, yeah. Why actually it has to happen. Hence, the Sharia says when somebody leaves the religion, you should kill them. Again, like this is like when I put it that way, it sounds really awkward. Hence, I said, it depends on the context. There are all these criteria, etc. I'm just giving the summary form of it. For our listeners, we do not kill people. There is also another thing that we be very careful. Like if our brother Ali was here, he would probably slap me because I didn't say that. So when we talk about living religion, we're not talking about living the culture. Like living the culture of Islam, like as it is lived in most of the Turkey, for instance. This is not the topic of the text, because when people leave the culture, they leave something they don't like, they cannot stand, because it's lived in a very terrible way, and this is the only thing they know. They think that this is Islam. They are living Islam, but actually they are living the false representation of Islam. So the text is not talking about them. Text is talking about people who know Islam or the prophetic teaching as prophetic teaching, and it makes sense to them, right? And forget about them, us. Like I know to the extent I know, and let's say I know the prophetic teaching, and I can bear witness with my entire life that it is truth. But there are some moments of my life that I actively deny it so that I will have some joy, right? I know that I have to pray, not because it is ordained or obligatory, because like first-hand experience, I know that when I leave Salah, the prayer, my life, my personality becomes shaking, terrible. Darkness surrounds me, right? Because I tasted the truth first. But just to, let's say, watch a movie a few more minutes, I say, okay, I will pray later, and then I miss it. In those moments, I become like them, the people the text is talking about. In such moments, for instance, I am lower than animals. I become an enemy of religion. If I'm watching the movie, there are a few minutes left for the prayer, and I say, okay, I will pray right after the movie ends, and Yusuf comes and tells me, what are you doing? The Salah will pass. I get so angry to him inside, right? I give some names for him. I say, okay, you think you are the only Muslim, right? Inside, maybe not articulating, but in those moments, I become like the people that author is talking about. So this is not about other people only. Okay? So with this distinction, again, we're not talking about the culture. We're talking about the people who knows by themselves that this is the truth, but still living it for worldly, let's say, pleasures. An author says you cannot even get your pleasure.
So then I think this text can be taken in multiple ways, but let's go with the safer one. We can extend it, but the safer one is with the audience that he was talking to, like somebody brought up within a certain Muslim understanding. Yes, I do see something is wrong within the society that I was raised up, but still, even one of like people who are from this society, as it happens a lot in Turkey, they do hate how government is abusing religion or using religion for their means and ends, yet stealing and doing this and that and whatnot. And they use this as an excuse to say that, well, this is your Islam and whatnot. This is a justifiable way of criticism, maybe. But even in such people's lives, let's say there is a grandmother, grandfather who was a nice, devout believer, they would say, oh, he was a good guy. So what I'm trying to say with this one is nobody really has 100% dark picture of religion experience. They do have dark experiences, which justifies their questioning or criticism towards religion. But they do have many good examples as well. So, but we make a decision. We make a decision saying that I would like to be like them, like the Westerners. So at this point, I mean, going back to how, since you said that they are justified to question culture and whatnot, in theory, yes, but it's never as black and white in anybody's life. We always see good examples somewhere, bad examples somewhere. Like since we have many Pakistani friends for the past couple of years, there seems to be a very weird, like illiterate way of applying things, especially with certain tariqats and whatnot. This is why people from Pakistan are getting extremely allergic when you talk about certain ways of Sufism and whatnot, because they observe very weird applications in there. Yet you do observe some good Sufis in there. So based on this, you cannot exclusively take it and criticize and go away. The problem is, despite you seeing good examples and them having a good effect on your life, you make a decision to leave that. This is where the problem is starting. Because now there are good aspects that are part of your life and you are removing it from your heart. And the question is, what is going to establish those values in your heart? Because you're removing your teacher from your heart. And in a way that you're criticizing your teacher. What is going to replace it? This is the question. In the setup that he is saying, so shall we go with, since like Western culture? Like in Western culture, people are not fighting, especially nowadays. They're not fighting with the religion that much. Still, they keep their, at some corner of their heart, Jesus, I mean, although they say son of God or whatever, but it gives them some sort of faith. But you cannot accept that. After denying Muhammad ﷺ, you cannot accept Jesus. So it's not an option for you to put in your heart. That door is closed to you. This is one level of meaning in here. Of course, we can also say that, how about an atheist person who is born into United States? Would they have any value in their heart? I think this is a secondary level. But right now, the point is more so that if you remove that teacher from your heart, you're taking a stand against whatever that teacher introduced to your life. This is why taking this animosity towards anything affiliated with it becomes the norm. Second question then becomes, how about if I say, no, I want to be an atheist altogether? I think this is where, I mean, let's see if Sister Sarah is here. No, she's not. I don't know if that is in line with what he says, I want to be like an animal. Because denying religion altogether is a third category that's being mentioned in here. He didn't name it, but it feels like denying revelation or the possibility of receiving guidance altogether is simply like being an animal. Like you mean life is meaningless, which means as if you are trying to knock off your intellect. It's such a lower thing. No matter where you're coming from, Christian denying the religion, Muslim denying the religion, but at the end, if atheism becomes your norm, then you're sort of trying to become an animal, which is
Not sort of like, because if you talk to an atheist, they would say, yes, we humans are animals. But it's not a insult.
and in this case, then the author will say, you cannot become an animal either. So this is why when a Muslim is envying towards, oh, Europeans are so nice, Americans are so nice, says you cannot be like a Christian. And you cannot be an animal either. So I guess this is the two-tier meaning that's being put in there.
I think
So just to clarify, we're not really speaking on moral failings that people may have, that maybe a Muslim is falling into some sort of a bad habit. That's not necessarily what Imam Nursi is talking about
No,
here.
no.
He's talking about, believing that some sort of Western value or lifestyle is superior to some Muslim value or lifestyle.
Okay, so I think the short answer is no. Yes, you are right. Yes, in that sense. He's not talking about a Muslim person failing into, the bad habit, etc. He's talking about removing the idea of prophet from your heart. It's like it's altogether saying that no, I will leave everything that Islam taught me. I will leave everything behind and find a new life for me. So he's talking about that. But maybe we should adjust our language in this circle a bit, not to criticize, but so when we say Western values, I mean, we are Westerners now. We are living in US. I'm a citizen, recently became. I didn't receive my passport. All my family received, not me. So maybe I'm not, but they are. So in that sense, this word Westerner becomes in like what she would put herself, for instance, right? Dominican Republican. Is she a Westerner or something else? What is it called, right? So the author is not talking about, again, the culture, right? The author is talking about someone who has the understanding of the prophetic teaching, revelation in their heart. In this specific case, the Prophet Muhammad wasalam's teachings. They leave the person leaving these teachings, understanding them, and then leaving them behind. Is it possible to find any value somewhere else? That's the question.
So if we talk like talking about Pakistan, let's say, like you were saying, that there are some bad implementations, let's say Sufism. If so, the teachings of the Prophet, and you start seeing these implementations that are not accurate to how the Prophet would have done things. And I've experienced, or I've seen people that see these things, and that's what pushes them away entirely from the religion. Like they see like all these wrong implementations of, let's say, the Sunnah or something that's not even the Sunnah, and it's become culturally Islamic, and that's what pushes them away from Islam. But I feel like in that case, they're not really like trying to imitate anyone. They're not trying to go that way. Like, I don't see how that would be turning off the light of the prophet, but because whatever they're seeing is already wrong.
I totally agree with you. That's what I was saying. Yusuf has some points, maybe not fully agreeing with that. But I think you are right. Because, like, even if you see some good examples in your culture, right? If these good examples are just, okay, yeah, these are good people, but I'm looking at some other Christians or atheists, they're also good people. If there are no difference between the two, if nothing was taught to me to explain why this good example is better than that one, then I don't have teaching of prophet in my heart anyway. Like in your case, in your example, for instance, if a person was not taught, was not given the right example of the prophetic teaching, never in their life, and all they see is the terrible things that people doing to each other and call it Islam, then going away from it, to me, it's like they're on the right path. Maybe they will be that will be the beginning, starting point for them to find the true religion and become true Muslims. That being said, like this is, in a black and white world, this is how I think. So I agree. That being said, as Yusuf said, like it's never black and white. So yes, people see all these terrible things, but we also know that everybody has now opportunity to access, to learn about something better, a better version of it. We all have these opportunities. Instead of learning the better version, if you choose something else, this is again I cannot judge you because you are the only one who would know that. But taking it personally with my life, in my life, I had a lot of opportunity in Turkey, right? Getting access to true teachings of the Prophet, understanding, implementing my life. I never chose it. Not because of the terrible examples, etc., around me, because some other options seemed more attractive to me. And when I chose them, I lived like an animal, even worse than an animal. I can bear witness that. But the moment I said, okay, this is not bearable, I have to find the truth. You choose that, now the path is open in front of you. So we shouldn't take it as black and white, but at the same time, temporally speaking as well, we shouldn't take it as 0 or 1, meaning you live it, so you lost everything. But in your moments of your life, every moment of your life, you may live it or not. Right, please. Microphone, please.
Then I think there is an opportunity to like a takeaway that I get from this text is kind of a call to dawah, I guess. Like I think that after reading all this, I do feel a sense of responsibility, because it seems to me that at some point, like, to those Muslims that fall for the deception, right? Something's wrong there. Something's wrong with those Muslims, right? That they're maybe not choosing to access that information, because it's not. I think it's really more on the Muslim and not on the disbeliever, because I've always thought, and I'm sure that everyone thinks the same, like, if a disbeliever is a nice person and leading a good life, is there really a call to learn something else? Like, my life is pretty good now. I have no reason to read it up on Hinduism, right? Like I wouldn't really go there, right? And I think that a lot of disbelievers might think the same thing. Like even if it's accessible, even if we all have the opportunity or the chance to look into these things, they may be like, nah, I'm fine, right? So I think that it's really important to teach Islam the right way, and I think that I don't know if you guys would agree that it really is the outreach, and less of like I think it's more likely to call. It's easier for someone to be called than to seek, and I think that that's kind of how I'm taking it right now. Like, I don't know if I would have found Islam if I hadn't been called to it by other people, or I don't know if I would be in this spot in this room right now if this situations weren't like if I wasn't invited. So I think that yeah, that's important. It's to me clear that it's important to like have this outreach.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan, very important point. Yusuf, your expertise.
No, I mean, that was a good point. I am going to talk about something else.
Oh, okay.
So,
That's your expertise, changing the topic.
so author makes a statement in here. He brought up that if you take profit out of your heart, you cannot believe in God anymore. And if you put it into context, the first, second, third fruits were talking about worship. Like, why is it that, like, by logic, like it's perfectly logical that there must exist a God, but I want to take profit out of my heart. How come that it's going to take this necessary logical conclusion from me? Like it looks like it shouldn't, right? So what does it mean to take profit out of your life so much so that it's even going to take away your conviction about God? Because that version of it is also nowadays available. It's not coming from just the hatred of religion, hatred of culture or anything, but it is just that, like, why him? I can find truth by myself. But that attitude is going to eventually take belief in God from me as well. That's an interesting. How come? And does this happen really?
Now, I was going to ask that question too, like, at what level of imitation is Imam Nursi talking? Like, don't try to imitate them, don't try to be like them. Like, what level of imitation is that you completely, first, you completely remove the Prophet from your heart, and the second is everything else that's good also goes away, including believe in God. So, like to me, I clearly do not see it as, oh, let's say like not dressing the sunnah way or not eating the sunnah way. Like you try to blend in with the environment you're in. You're like, can that lead to like this seems very harsh. Like if I see someone that's not like, let's say, eating the way that the Prophet used to, like I'm having a hard time getting it connected to like, oh, now you're just like removing the Prophet from your heart. And the next step is your belief in God, that's also gone. So what level of imitation are we talking here?
And I think it gradually leads to there. Even, for example, even if I do not practice, let's say I was eating today with fork, Atik is eating with his hand. So if I say, this is disgusting, man, what are you doing? And then I start criticizing it. Like this criticism, as it goes to now the prophetic practice, is a different thing than saying that Prophet applied it like this, and I'm not able to do it because of, like, I am faulty. Like this is a separate thing. But starting to remove it from my heart, saying that I disagree with him in this point. Like this was his way, this is my way. Now I start making my own way in certain things in life. This is how slowly I start removing Prophet from my heart. And then eventually, fast forward, if I live long enough, I mean, Allah protect us to be in such a situation, but I can see that actually it will eventually remove belief in God from my heart as well. Because belief in God it's not like it's a necessary conclusion, but we already like discussed multiple times in here. Denial doesn't mean that you don't have this necessary conclusion, you just cover it up. Like kufr is, you know the truth, but you intentionally cover it up. Even if it's a logically necessary conclusion, then I will say, why do we need to be logically consistent? Like, I will just want to blow up the logic. I would like to sacrifice logic just so that I can deny God. People do that, right? So that I'm not contradicting myself, but I'm saying that why do we need to be logically consistent? Truth is relative. Why are we being so obsessed about finding some absolute truth, and we are making intellect the top architect of truth? And then truth is gone. Then now I'm free to deny God. So there is, like, it eventually goes there. We can see that. But how come that prophet going out of my life? And I think this is related to how prophet has been embodying worship. Because leaving prophet or abandoning prophet from my heart simply means I am abandoning the state of being a worshipper. Because Muhammad is abduhu wa rasuluhu. So first, I'm not only abandoning him as a Rasul, I am also abandoning him as abd. Like, the best of humanity is an abd, and I don't want to be an abd. I don't want to be a worshipper. I want to be an independent human being, independent in the sense of I do exist independently. Now, I am a competitor with God. So eventually, yes, God will also get out of my heart. This is who the prophet is, so central. Like, being an abd is like the central single light. If you switch it off, everything becomes into darkness.
Jazakallah. So then your question, Ahmed, to what level of imitation? It starts with even tiny things, right? But it's about the intentions, which reminded me a few not narrations, but the stories about the Sahaba. Father and son is talking to each other, to Sahaba. The father says, I don't remember what the topic is about, whether it is about the marriage or something else. Father says to his son, you should do it this way because prophet did it that way, this way, okay? The father says, you should do it this way because this is the way of the prophet. And son start like giving the answer, says, but father, he says. And the father stops the son. How dare you say but? I told you what prophet did, and you starting your sentence with a but. I will not talk to you anymore, he says, and never talks him again. So this is how serious they took it. Of course, we cannot apply it to ourselves directly, because for them, they have access to true religion, through understanding, through teachings, and the truth and the falsehood are like a black and white for them. They can see how they're different. For us, it's not. Another narration, one Sahabe visits another Sahabe. The host he serves a food made with cabbage. The cabbage meal served. The other Sahaba says, oh, I don't like it. The Sahaba says it's one meal Prophet enjoyed most. He says, I don't like it. This other Sahaba says, okay, you are out of religion now. When we hear this, I don't know whether this is, you should take it as serious or not, because it's a story of two Sahaba and they can make mistakes. Right? I'm not narrating this as a ruling, but how serious they took it. Right? Again, for online listeners, certain people, they would say, oh, we don't take the what is the word, culinary, like the way, the things that you eat. the culinary habits of Prophet as a sunnah. Yes, this is not, I'm telling you. I'm not saying that you have to like cabbage, but this is how they take it. Why? Because as Yusuf said, when you do it intentionally, actively, somebody says, Prophet used to sit in this way, and you say, okay, good for people who can follow him, follow his practice and sit in the same way. But I don't have, let's say my knees are hurting, so I cannot sit that way. I wish I could, but I cannot, or I'm not accustomed to it. When I do it, I feel awkward, right? So I will not do it. I wish I could. This is one way of not doing it. But another way is Prophet used to sit this way and you say, who cares? He lived like a 14 centuries ago. It's not my business. It's not his business to tell me how to sit. This is the another way which author is talking, as far as I understand. And when you do that, now you are saying that how I sit, how I live my life, or is even how I interpret this life, it's my choice. Nobody else can tell me, which is exact opposite of the first revelation, Iqra, and the Prophet saying, I don't know how to read. So if you already know how to read, how to sit, how to drink, how to eat, how to treat your children, you already know everything. There's no way a revelation will come and teach you. You are already full. So you cannot become a worshipper. You cannot accept that you need guidance. Another narration, an outsider comes to the village of Sahaba, right, the companions. He's trying to make fun of them. Oh, I heard your Prophet even teach you how to clean yourself after going to the restroom. And the Sahaba gets so excited. He says, yes, we have such a Prophet, right? He's so happy with that because he knows that whatever they have in their life, there is always a proper way, a way that will please the Creator. And they are so lucky that they have a guide to teach them the way the Creator will be pleased. How you apply it to yourself. Oh, I follow this tradition because it's, I don't know, make me look better. I think that's the difference. Any comments? Please.
And maybe Turkey being an interesting case of like being at the very physically vast and so mentally vast of Muslim world. They're very fast-forwarded examples as such, but there are now very famous people within the society which have been like actively Islamic thinkers at some point, but they were too much into philosophy at some point. And then it was initially criticizing Prophet and whatnot, but now it comes to some point almost like there's some sort of wording of God, but it's almost like universe. Everything is God. I am God. Like
a mathematical concept.
Sort of a mathematical concept, and
It doesn't have any
God.
reality.
So this is how it goes to, and then you said, oh, this person is really embodying that transition. This is how it started, and this is what started to be sacrificed, because it was a love of philosophy initially, but in like philosophy being the alternative to prophethood or prophetic teaching, then you start the stage by stage change. I mean, that person is that person out there, but where am I? I guess author in here is warning, oh soul, so asking to or addressing his own soul and saying that, are you really willing to be somewhere in the spectrum? If you start, this is going to be the slippery slope that you're going through.
And this is exactly how people, unbelievers, would attack religion. The attack does not come from arguments, whether God exists or not, whether He's the one or not. You don't see such arguments much. There are, of course, a few videos, etc. But every serious attack against religion starts with prophetic teachings, the way you live your life. Oh, you Muslim, you killed these homosexuals. Not about, the God himself or any argument about the God. It's about the way, the practical way that you live your life. So for an outsider, it will be a direct attack to prophetic teachings, because if they manage you, have some questions, or questioning is good, but in a negative way, have some doubt about the prophetic teachings, they already win. They don't need any argument for the Creator. Once you start criticizing the prophetic teaching, you're not criticizing how to eat. You are criticizing the fact that somebody will have a say in the way you eat. You criticize that, and you are gone already. They just destroyed religion. In Islamic societies, because attack towards the Prophet is not that easy, it usually starts with attacking to Sahaba. They would say, oh yeah, this person was not the good person. This person, look at the way they lived, look at the way they treated. They didn't understand the Prophet well, right? It will start with criticizing Sahaba. You can understand Prophet better than them, right? Why? Because your connection to Prophet is through Sahaba. Once it is severed, cut, your connection to Prophet is cut. Once your connection to the Prophet is gone, your religion is gone already. Like when I say religion, your belief, iman, is gone already. Just look at the how attacks towards religion happens. You will see this pattern everywhere. Which goes back to your question as well. I think it is very, they're tied. So outreach, dawah, yes, we agree. In my case, in my personal experience, for instance, my, what's the word? Çöküş, collapse. My collapse started with this innocent idea. I remember very clearly. I have a life better than all these Muslim people around me. And I'm a believer. I believe in God. But the way I dress, the way I act, the way I treat other people, how I enjoy art, science, whatever, much better than all these, I apologize, but the stupid religious people around me. I will teach them the better way of believing. This innocent idea, seemingly innocent idea, was the start of the collapse for me. So when we have this notion of we should teach them, this is right. This is a prophetic sunnah that we have to follow. But at the same time, it can be start of deviating from the prophetic teaching as well. So what we mean with I will teach them, we have to be very careful. We have to look at ourselves and judge somehow where I am in this path of being a worshipper. If I have this sense that I have better thing and I will teach them, it's already like this. Satan already started showing its let's say the horns there, right? You have something better than others. So you have to judge it very carefully. It's a slippery slope.
It rather should be you are gifted and trusted with.
Yes.
And I think also an important part is you are entrusted and you're carrying it over. Rather than, I guess, with your example, for instance, I will come up with, or I came up with this understanding and I will share it. So in this case, I am starting to own it in the sense that I created it. So this is deviation from being an abd, and this is why things are going to start slippery. Otherwise, as long as Brother Birkan was highlighting, Prophet was given how to read, and he taught us how to read, and he knows that so upon messenger is nothing but just to deliver the message. So I'm saying I am entrusted with this message and I am carrying it over to you, but I am not the guide to you. I'm not going to give guidance to your heart. It is the creator. The guide is the creator. The source of guidance is the creator. I am just the conduit which carries the message. So as long as this understanding is there, but feeling the responsibility part is important. I think this was an important point that Natalia highlighted. So do I feel like, I mean, we do feel it. This is why we feel sorry when we see a homeless person. Like you're given money in your pockets, and then you see this person lacking the money and there's need in there. So this responsibility is put in you existentially. Likewise, you are given and trusted a message, sharing it with others in this sense is a responsibility. So with the same token, because it's much of a necessity than food. Like Iman is much of a necessity than food.
And like practically speaking, then how you can find the balance when you take it as, I have better life, I have better teaching from them, I know the truth, better than them. You usually live a isolated, the life, and you say that this is the best thing I have, and I will share with the others. But what you mean is let others to imitate you, learn from you. But on the other hand, when you take it as, okay, I was given such a gift, and I see somebody needing it as well, I will share it. Practically speaking, what you do, you call them to halakas, for instance. You say, okay, I'm learning it for you, right? Let's learn it together. Or you start your own halakah, right? The idea is let's learn it together. Let's ask for it together, right? So I think, at least for me, practically speaking, this helps me. If I see someone needy, instead of just trying to teach them the better thing, I invite them to these halakas, for instance, so that they will be part of the prayer for asking better understanding.
Probably we talked about this before many times, but then the third tier, meaning you cannot be an animal part, because he now says, he refers to a verse like cattle, nay, they are further astray. So being worse than an animal, like you cannot be. The beginning part of this verse is, وَلَقَدْ ذَرَأْنَا لِجَهَنَّمَ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ, and we have certainly created for hell many of the jinn and mankind. لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا, they have hearts with which they do not understand. وَلَهُمْ أَعْيُنٌ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ بِهَا, they have eyes with which they do not see. وَلَهُمْ آذَانٌ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا, and they have ears with which they do not hear. أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْغَافِلُونَ, those are like livestock, rather they are more astray. It is they who are the heedless. So denying message altogether, meaning I have heart, I have eyes, I have ears, but I don't derive any conclusion from them. This is simply what it is. Like you have eyes, but you don't see. What does this mean? Like still eye is functioning, but wisdom, like a wise sight is not happening. There is sound entering into my ears, but it's not getting converted into some conclusion, some knowledge. So human without the revelation, then without belief in creator, simply becomes something worse than an animal. So if anybody has any comment about this part, or I mean, if it's self-evident since we discussed it.
So it's a very, like listening to you reminded me already. So this reminded me a certain the understanding of the humans, animals, or living things, like a mechanical, let's say, understanding of things. The sight or hearing, etc. It works as if, the same way the wind and the flowers. The wind comes, flowers rotate based on the wind or the sunlight, right? They're each connected to each other, but it's like a mechanical toy, right? You push from one side, it moves on the other side. So people sometimes also interpret the seeing and hearing the same way as well. It's just a certain signal or the wave coming to your body. It has some actions which translated as a movement, etc. They try to sell it as a scientific or philosophical understanding, but listening to you, it's really just like being an animal. Like you have an eye, but you don't see. There is no even seeing. It's just a force make you move in a certain way. There's no such thing as seeing even. Yes, there is some mental representations, etc., associated with it, but it's just another switch in the circuit. So it's just the way the so-called scientists or philosophers describe the agency. It's just exactly the same way this ayah is talking about them.
Then what was the initial like this started all with the first intro was do not look at the worldly, especially the dissipated and the unbelievers, and be deceived by their superficial glitter and illicit pleasures. Do not imitate them. So what carries me there, according to author, is there this glittery life, superficial glittery life, and the pleasures that is there. Like it's not seeing them better in moral qualities. What takes me there is this apparent joys. And he even uses the term, what was it again? Superficial, apparent joy. He's even saying that there's not a real joy in there. So, and if I check myself, actually, today we were talking with Maryam. So, how did the conversation start about our chickpeas? Like initially, when you are poor, you offer people chickpeas in the discussion, and then
everybody has the same amount of wealth. Yeah.
People do enjoy these, and like poor times are when people are more piously following the religion. Okay.
There was no parking lot.
Oh yeah, there was no parking light before the masjid.
I'm not telling that like me the parking lot is not only masjid,
Yeah, so she was saying that in order to make a masjid, it's not only making the building, you need to have the parking lot and whatnot. I said, Muslims are new in this country, they are poor. And so you need to get rich to make nice masjids with parking lots underneath it. But once you get rich, you become less religious. So you make the masjids, but then there's no people filling inside the masjid. Like there's this cycle that's happening. So I was giving the example from discussions. You initially, like you're poor, you're offering people chickpeas, and then people attending the discussion get rich, you get rich, and then you start
Who's getting
offering
rich? I'm sorry.
biryani in discussions and whatnot. But then since people are getting more worldly with these glittery joys out there, then why shall I go to discussion becomes a thing. So there's this cycle that keeps happening in there. Still, when I talk to some friends from my college days, we used to offer them just soup, salad, and rice, not even chickpeas. So we updated. And then they still say, oh, those soup were so nice. Like it was just plain lentil soup, nothing special about the soup. But people were seeking for meaning in their lives. But the more this worldliness kicks in, and I envy having some luxuries of life, I think this is how slowly Prophet is leaving my heart, or I am abandoning Prophet from my heart, and then this vicious cycle starts kicking in. So may Allah protect us from deviating. It's very easy. And it's hard to catch yourself sometimes, especially if it keeps happening slowly. It simply becomes the norm. Like you update your car, your friends update the car. Like initially, driving this super old Passat was super luxury for me. Now I said, well, maybe I need some sort of an electric car or something. Like as the people around you start getting it and you can start affording it, as it becomes affordable, it becomes a need as if. And this is how step-by-step prophetic teaching is living my life.
Alhamdulillah, our circle is protected from that so far. I never seen anybody in our circle becoming successful and rich. That means, guys, I'm sorry, but you are the ones who will stay as poor and not successful. This is our tradition. A few people who tasted success just a bit, they left us. Alhamdulillah, we are protected.
It's not even online. Kadir, the latest. He got into Tesla. This week too, he's not even online.
Okay, so we will inshallah finish in a 10 minutes or so, maybe less than that. Final point is going back to the example again. Everything is so connected in Islam, the palace of Islam, and another, let's say, the options, things are not connected. I think we can also take it as the beauty we see or the goodness, apparent goodness we see out there is also baseless. Like they're not connected to each other. They are not, what is the word? Being fed from a source. And what I mean with this in practice, like we discussed this, for instance, again, with our sister Sarah's friend, atheist friend. She was asking, like, look at the outside world, those who do not believe, especially the countries who are most secular, right? You see goodness there. But again, like practically speaking, don't make the comparison between secular countries and Pakistan, or secular countries and Saudi Arabia or Turkey, right? Make the comparison between their teachings and Islamic teaching. Because if you compare any country with Pakistan, any country will win. Okay? So don't make such a comparison. The point is not that. The point is their teaching and Islamic teaching. The apparent goodness you see there, yes, as author says, they can or they think they can still benefit from Jesus or Moses, etc. So I want to talk about this they think they can part. The goodness we see there out there, I think in this today's world, we can see it in practice as well. How these good people, how these good teachings, for instance, act silent against a genocide. Something happens terrible, they continue living their good life, right? Including our countries as well. And they can just turn their face to another direction, for instance. This is the goodness we see there. A baseless goodness. It is good to the point there is no conflict. If there is a point, like up until the moment, there's no conflict. When there is a conflict, you don't see any goodness anymore. Right? So in this society, for instance, it is all based on getting away from conflict. Because they know the moment the conflict starts, there's no right and wrong. There's no reason one person not to kill another person. So they have to prevent any conflict. This is how society is built in this country, for instance. Everybody against conflict. You will shout at them, you will insult them, they will not say anything. They will get away from the conflict, which is good, like to some extent. But why this is so? Because there is no core teachings that can that can prevent a catastrophe when a conflict starts. With the prophetic teaching, though, because everything is so connected to this prophetic teaching and the real source, even when there's a conflict, when you have a fight, you will always have the question, is my creator pleased with that or not? Even when you are right, you have the right, you may say that, okay, it is yours. I'm not fighting with you. You can say that. Why? Because you say, okay, whatever my creator is given to me is bigger than that. Who cares about this worldly gain? Let them win. You can say that. And it's not a baseless thing anymore. Right? So, like the example of Ali radiallahu anhu. During a fight, like a war, enemy spits on his face and he puts his sword down, doesn't kill the guy. I ask why. I spit on you because I want you to kill me faster so that I will not get any pain. He says, when you spit, I took it personal. So if I kill you, I will kill for my personal anger. I cannot do it. So this is the prophetic teaching. Even during the wartime, there is ethics. Not made up ethics, though. Ethics based on a real source. Who cares who wins the war? This is how he says. I have the responsibility of fighting. I'm fighting, at my best capacity. But when it comes to a point that I go after a worldly gain to please my ego, for instance, I will stop there, he says. You cannot find such a teaching in anywhere else or in anything else. During the wartime, these good people will become, including the Muslim people, if they are not benefiting from prophetic teaching, like a Muslim as a culture. Okay? So again, this is not the comparison of the cultures. These good people during the wartime will become monsters. So when he says, if you leave religion, you become animal, even less than animal, because nothing in your life will have any base. You cannot find any reason, for instance, why should I act in a good manners? Why? You will not find any reason. You will force yourself. You will say this is the societal norm, etc. But in the moment of a conflict, you will say that, okay, it is my right to get inside these shops, steal everything from there, and go to my home. This is what happens, right, in this society. In every moment of conflict, you will see a catastrophe, with no exception. Okay, if there are no other comments, questions, we can stop there. Otherwise, we'll start the conflict. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.